I'm actually a lot more hyped for the fight going on with Choso and Naoya than I am with Yuta and Yuji. It's like with Yuta and Yuji, like that fight is already like interesting. I think that fight's got a pretty high level potential of showing. Just should gonna like see some moves shown off by Yuji in the upcoming ones, as well as Yuta. Like we haven't seen Yuta really get serious. He's barely using any of his moves, and I don't think he's fighting seriously at all yet. But the stuff with Choso, I am much more hyped to see. Essentially, it was another really fast to read chapter, like very fast paced, which at the same time I'm all right with. I think the value in this chapter is more just like looking at very specific characters, like moments, like just specific things that are going to play out like further in the future. Like with Choso, I'm very happy to see that Naoya is going to demonstrate more of that weird ability that Naobito had, like that ability to like put something essential. It looks like they're trapping him in the Phantom Zone from like some a Superman movie, but it's like one of the only powers I just do not understand. I look, it was a weird, complicated power, and I didn't see it enough to really kind of grasp it. Like because I haven't. It's not like I go back and look at it all the time. Like usually most of the time I'll only think about it when it comes up, just because I think it's one of those powers that's just going to be more like sensical as it's like displayed and like described by more than one character. Kind of like when we first saw Satoru's ability like Limitless. It's like it was a very odd power, and it wasn't until we started seeing it more that I got, let's see, like more general descriptions. Like when the dude in Volume Zero mentions that like the essential basis of how it works is he's manipulating space at the atomic level. So it's like, okay, a spatial ability. Okay, you're able to kind of like make out the rest of the aspects of his ability. At least if you have like a more like a general grasp and understanding of like the like how spatial powers can work, then like not even like just like trying to be like crazy like science about like space or something. If you just understand essentially how like spatial powers work in fiction and stuff and by characters, you're able to connect some dots, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm hoping that we can get a similar thing with now you're using this power, because he's interesting. I like him as a bad guy. He gives off like a very scumbag presence, but he's one of those bad guys that isn't gonna just be, oh, I'm just a scummy guy. I'm just a jerk who can't even back it up. Like he's at least is gonna be one of those guys just from off of these chapters that is going to be able to back up like the shit he says. So I'm hyped for that in general. But like Yuta versus Yuji. Yuji ends up pulling up like a combat knife, and we have like a little bit of explanation on just like how using it. Because obviously, if it's just a knife, like it's gonna break against Yuta, but he's imbuing it with some cursed energy. There's just a nice little back nod at that. Like that's a very easy concept to understand. You're essentially just buffing this weapon with your own power, so you could use it. Because obviously, otherwise Yuta would just cut right through it, and there'd be no problem. But at the same time, like he can still do it. It just was a slight degree more difficult for him. But Yuji was setting it in to break Yuta's sword. But I don't think that's really gonna matter, because like when Yuta goes to stab him, like he should be able just to make up the blade with cursed energy. Essentially, just imagine the blade is a full length, but instead of like the steel portion, he just compensates with the raw cursed energy. Because that's the thing we know about him so far, is that just the general description is that he has just a ton, and he's able to use it freely and just use it in all these different shapes and forms. But after that, I was like very curious about what was going on with Rika, because we know that in Volume Zero, like Rika passed on, and like when Yuji sees him, like mentions that is this a Shikigami and stuff. So it's like, is this a fake Rika? Did he replicate Rika? He like manage to somehow pull her back? Because obviously this one looks different too. Like there's no eye. Like the general outfit looks a little odd. Like this Rika's like wearing some form of like black, like energy clothing or something. Unless he's opening a portal and Rika's coming through it. Like say like what he can do is Rika is passed on, but he can call Rika back from the afterlife or something. Maybe when Rika passed on, he was able to make like a full scale copy of the curse version of her. I don't know. Like that's to me is like the big question around Yuta right now, because we're gonna get a lot of him. Clearly, like he's a big deal. Clearly, he's popular by the fans. He's important to the story. Akutami likes him and whatnot. It's clear we're gonna get more of him as like stuff progresses. But like that's the big question in general. I'd like to know about him just because it obviously has to do with his backstory that we already know of. So like that's the big question mark. And I'm fine with waiting, but at the same time, that's at least to me the thing that I want to know most is like how does he have Rika, and like is this the real Rika? What exactly is the explanation? But he ends up just putting the broken blade up to Yuji and then like, stabs through him. And there's a moment where Sukuna takes a degree of notice in this chapter, and I think that's going to be really interesting in general. Like when Yuji gets stabbed, there's got like a moment where he spits up blood, and then Sukuna is like, oh, he just realizes something, and he seems to be smiling. So I think he's happy. He might join in this fight, and we could get a fight between Yuta and Sukuna, which I think would be really cool. I'd love to see Rika versus Sukuna. I think that'd be a really big chaotic fight. And there's no like civilians around, so you can have like just a big chaotic destructive battle and not have to worry about people, just random civilians dying and having to address that. But outright there, like that's gonna be very, very hype in general of whatever he did, because we know that Yuji can just heal. Like Sukuna can just heal him. It's how Sukuna responds to this that is the interesting aspect to it, because we know Yuji's not going to die. He's both the main character and he's the host for Sukuna, and Sukuna can just regenerate him at will. It's just how the next chapter is going to lead into Sukuna I'm hoping trying to talk to Yuta, that I think is the big hype moment that's being built right now. But over with Choso and Naoya, like you have Naoya just seeming like, my guess is he's just way faster than Naobito, or he has another technique that he stacks on top of that weird freeze frame ability that he's able to combine them. Because like I think that I would imagine fighting this power, it would feel almost like you're fighting somebody who stops time. It's not a time stop power, but it's kind of like that at an individual standpoint. Just like if you're 1v1ing somebody, it would look like that to them, to where you're just freezing them in this moment and then setting up a perfect hit. You're setting up probably the best hit into their blind spot, the best hit into how you don't want to set up your own moves. Like this is like like just an amazing setup power in general. Like if you had, like imagine if somebody who had this had another ability on top of that, like some form of like like something like how Satoru has Hollow Purple, where he's got like essentially if you don't have like a Hack's resistance to it, like, you're gonna get erased. To whereas combining those two would be perfect, set up for the perfect target, and then like an auto kill, bam. But I feel like that would be too OP to give somebody both of those things in the world. That would have to be like big end boss kind of territory. But regardless, he's got this move like underway. Like I'm guessing that overall he's not as powerful as Naobito. I'm just assuming, but that could be completely not the case. He could be more powerful. Like this guy's clearly a big deal. He's kind of like on that. He's like in a level of He's like a level of just like holding for like what cards he's got. Like if you just imagine like, okay, what reveals does this guy have? He's either, I think overall he's gonna either be not as powerful as Naobito was with this technique, but he combines it with something else to make him to compensate and make him more powerful, or he's just outright more powerful because clearly he's like the next up. He's got the dude's technique and he's fighting with a special grade human, or special grade curse rather, in a human flesh. Like Choso's weird because it's not the same as like the other special grades. Like he's got flesh, but the way that he's still powerful, and he's like using his flowing red scale at the end. And I'd have to go back and look at like when he used it against Yuji in the previous arc, but it looks, I'm pretty sure it's slightly more advanced. Like the style that it is, I think has progressed. I'd have to go back and look. It might be the exact same. But I think it might be a little bit more special, like just the way that the lines are, like more of a progressed setup. And I like the moment when he's like asks him who he is, and he's like, "Yo, I'm the oldest of 10 siblings." I don't think Naoya knows that this guy is a cursed spirit, a spectral grade at that. Like obviously having to connect to Kamo Noritoshi and stuff. So that interaction I think is going to be more fun, at least for me. Because with Yuji, obviously Yuji's not going to die. It's more of like how things are going to kind of ramp up when it comes to Sukuna's involvement in that. But the fight with Nalia and Choso is what I have way more interest in right now. My stocks are there, and I want to see how the power, like his weird freeze frame power, maybe is like described again. Just because it's a weird power, and like I don't want to have to go back and just look at the chapter multiple times in order to figure it out, or like have somebody explain to me. I'd rather figure it out like over another explanation or two. Who knows? Either way, it's a weird power, but I do like it. I think he's pretty cool, and I like this guy even though he's a bad guy. I look at it obviously now from the point of he is intended to be a jerk, so I don't subtract those from his from his character. At least at the moment. If it gets out of hand, then maybe. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below. Thumbs up the video, but friend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody who subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.